Okay, the second subtopic in this chapter is thinking. So in these subtopics, we are going to discuss about concepts, we are going to discuss about problem solving, and we are going to discuss about reasoning and decision making. So what is thinking? So thinking is basically the process of manipulating information mentally by forming concepts, solving problems, making decisions, and reflecting in a critical or creative manner. So basically, when people talk about thinking, people are referring to one or more of these concepts, okay, or more of this aspect: forming concepts, solving problem, making decision, and reflecting a creative or critical manner. So these are all involved in our thinking process. So the main aspect of thinking is forming concepts. So why we human beings able to relate to new things that we've learned, that we've come through, that we've discovered, is by comparing these new things to the available mental concept that we already developed. Okay, since born and growing up, we always creating or forming new concepts, improving and enhancing our available concept. So what is concepts? Concept is a mental category that are used to group objects, used to group events, and used to group characteristics. So we depend on concepts to relate what we have learned, what we have known before, with new things that we discovered. And in fact, sometimes through knowledge, through learnings, through experience, we develop and we create the concepts to a new available concept that we already have. So why concept is important? Concepts allow us to generalize things, okay, to categorize things, to group things together. Okay, so we are limited by the place and times that we are living in. Okay, so take for example animals. Okay, a lot of animals that we do not discover if we are staying in Malaysia or in Singapore or Indonesia. They are animals who are living in a more extreme weather, for example. Polar bear, for example. I have never come across polar bear, even when I go to zoo, for example. But when I go to these places and I discover polar bear, okay, I'm not going to be at a shock in the shock situation. Why? Because I can relate that a bear is basically an animal. Why? Because I already have the concept of animal in my mind. So I will be able to generalize all of new animals that I meet. Basically, they are animals. There are some animals who are not harmful to our safety. There are some animals are quite dangerous, for example. So these are basically relate back to our mental concept that we already have, and it allows us to make generalization. Okay. Besides that, concepts also allow us to associate experience and objects. Okay, like I mentioned before, when we discover new things, we are able to evaluate whether that objects, that animals is harmful to us or not. Okay, based on what? Based on our experience. So it's allow us to associate experience and object. And in addition to that, concept also aid our memory, help to assist to memorize, to remember things, or to recall and recover our memory. So making it more efficient so that we do not have to reinvent the wheel each time we come across a piece of information. Okay, so when we learn new things, then these new things will add on the available general concept that we already have. Okay, rather than creating a very specific concept for the new things that we discover. So in return, it will help us to memorize. It will help us to understand the new things better and more efficiently. Okay. Besides doing generalizations, okay, allow us to associate experience and object and aid our memory. Concepts also provide clues about how to react to a particular object or to particular experience or to particular situation. Why? Because we already have that concepts. This thing is dangerous. So this thing is not harmful to us. So this thing will give us more pleasant experience. So why we are be able to get all of this? Because of the clues. Where these clues come from? Because this standing or available concept in in our mind. So one of the ways that we able to do thinking process is through improving, comparing, relating the new things that we discover with the available concept that we already established in our brain. Okay, so one of the ways to use concept in our daily thinking is through prototype model. Okay, how we form concept, for example. So prototype model emphasizes people evaluate whether a given item reflects a certain concepts. Usually we compare the item, we compare the new item with the most typical items in that category, okay, in that concept that we already have. Okay, so here examples are given about guppy. Say for example, you have never seen a guppy fish before. Okay, so what we already have in our mind is a typical concept of pet. Okay, animals that people keep. Okay, people like to pet every day, like to keep close to themselves. Okay, so people we come across like cats, like dogs, but the features of guppy fish is not related or not resemble the dog or the cats. So you look, you already have the concept of fish living in water, okay, smaller in size, for example. So when you compare with your available concept in your mind, okay, you can relate that guppy is a type of fish, but at the same time, people keep it in their house, for example, for their own hobby, for example. So you compare these two things, okay, these three things, new fish discover and the available concept of fish and pet, and you will make conclusion that guppy fish is a pet fish. Okay, why? Because you already have this prototype. Okay, we already have this prototype in our mind. Okay, let's do this. Okay, hypothetical exercise. Okay, now I want to think. Okay, what is your first answer if I show you this picture, okay, of coral? Okay, do not search anything. That's the first answer in your mind. If I ask you, what is coral? Coral, is it a stone? Is it a plant? Or is it an animal? Okay, I give you a few seconds to think. So what is come first to your mind? Okay, now you already have your answer. So basically, when people ask us, what is coral? Is it coral a stone, an object? Is it coral an animal? Or is it coral a plant? Okay, when I was first discovered that, I was quite shocked because previous to that encounter, okay, I went to University Malaysia Terengganu at that particular times, and I go through their induction course. So for those who are not familiar with University Malaysia Terengganu, University Malaysia Terengganu is specialized in marine science. Okay, so when I go through their induction course, and then I know that actually what I understand about coral is wrong, because I thought coral is a stone, almost as a plant, but actually coral is an animal. Okay, you can check that. Okay, coral is an animal. So now, why do I think prior to that coral as a stone or as a plant? Because coral resembles my mental concepts of stone. It looks like a stone, especially if the coral is tight. Okay, so it's basically a stone. Okay, and then the colors, the movement, the organisms of living corals looks like a plant for me, but it's just that a plant under the sea. So, but after that, I know actually coral is not stone, coral is not an plant, coral is actually an animal. So I believe that some of us here will also have similar guess or answer like me before, which we think that coral as a stone or as a plant. Why? Because we have the mental concept of stone and mental concept of plants, and coral resemble the features of this aspect, and we make division and we think that coral also as a plant or as a stone. So those are examples, okay, explanation about the main things that we use to think every day, which is concepts. And one of the ways that we develop or form concepts is through prototype perspective or prototype model. Next, human beings always apply their thinking process to solve problems. So we are going to discuss about problem solving. So problems exist when we has a goal, but we have no clear methods, no clear way to achieve the goal. Okay, it's very technical definition. So basically, you want to do something, you want to achieve something, but you do not know how to achieve it. So basically, you have a problem. Okay, sometimes we created our own problem, but most of the time, problem exists and we have to face them. So what is problem solving? Problem solving is the mental process of finding an appropriate way, finding an appropriate solution, finding an appropriate methods to attain a goal when the goal is not readily available. Okay, so your motivations of not doing revisions to study for introduction to psychology is not a problem. Why is not a problem? Because solution already there. You don't have to find the solutions. You just have to execute the solution. The books are provided. Sorry, the notes are provided. You only have to find your own motivations to force you, okay, to drive you, to inspire you to make revision. So why? Because even though you think it's a problem, because you don't have motivation, actually the solution already there. Okay, that is the side of it. Problem solving entails following several steps, overcoming mental obstacles and developing expertise and developing solution. So when you want to achieve something, when we want to do something, when we want something, but there are no clear way, there are no methods that we know at that particular time to get what we want, to achieve what we want, so basically we have a problem. So in order for us to face with this situation, we have to embark into problem solving thinking process, which is finding an appropriate way to attain that goal. Okay, so generally there are 4 steps in problem solving process. Okay, so in our textbook, it mentions that the first step that we need to do when we face a problem and we want to do problem solving, first and foremost, we have to find and name the problems. In other words, really identify and problems that we have. Okay, what required from us to solve problems. Okay, second, we have to develop good problem solving strategies. Okay, we have to find out if we face the issues of not enough financial resources, okay, to fund our study, for example, what are the best solution for that? Okay, to apply for study loans, okay, to apply for scholarships, or to apply for discount, for example, or worst case scenario, you have to stop studying. Okay, obviously, stop studying is not an option because our goal is to learn and to get a certificate or a degree for that. So we have to explore other options. So in order for us to develop a good problem solving strategies, we can employ one of these strategies. Use sub-goals, algorithms, or heuristic. We're going to discuss in more detail after this. After we find or we develop or design solution for our problem, to solve our problems, we should evaluate whether that is the best solution. okay, whether that solution is effective, okay, whether that solution is efficient in trying to solve our problems. Okay, evaluation of solution, the third process. And the fourth and the last process is we have to rethink and redefine the problems and solution over time. Okay, why? Because the problems is not static. Instead, it's flexible and dynamic. It's changing because of context, because of time, because of other people's influence, because of other factors influence on that. So problems always evolve. So that we always have to rethink and redefine our problems so that our solution can also be effective and efficient over time. So let's look at one by one. Okay, the second part, the problem solving strategies. Like I mentioned just now, to solve a problem, to come out with solution, we can explore one of these strategies. First, sub-goals. So what is sub-goals? Sub-goals is intermediate goals of problems to solve the bigger problems. Okay, so in a better position for reaching a final goal or solution. Thing is like this. If you consider that make revision or studying for introduction to psychology is a problem, okay, it's a complex problem. Why? We have to cover for 13 chapters, okay, and these 13 chapters is covered through 14 lectures. So if you look at each chapter are difficult and complex by its own, okay, not thinking full introduction psychology course, but by chapter itself is very difficult. So what can you do? If we employ sub-goals techniques, so basically what we can do is we can look at chapters by chapters and try to create sub-goals for the main goals. The main goal is to be an expert or to be successful or to get an A for introduction to psychology. Okay, in order to achieve this general objective, okay, general goals, we create sub-goals. In order to do that, you have to understand each chapter. Okay, chapter 1, okay, introduction to psychology, research method and scientific methods. Chapter 2, okay, about biological, okay, about learning. So you create sub-goal for each. So here we are creating intermediate goals. By achieving these sub-goals, okay, at the end of the day, we are able to accomplish our main goals, okay, our main objectives. So through achieving sub-goals. So that is an example of creating sub-goals. So one interesting things about my former supervisors before, and I still applied and believe it until now, a complex issue or a problematic issue should be looked from its elements. Okay, what is the elements of the problem? So for me, problems and many tasks is not the same thing. For many people, they will consider that they are having problems when they have to do a lot of things. But for me, it's not the same. If I look at things, I look at tasks that I have to perform, if there are many tasks or subtasks that I need to perform in order to complete that task, for me it's not a problem. For me, it just I have many things to do. Because if I look at it's very simple things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if I'm able to complete all the 5 subtasks, I'm able to complete that task. So for me, it's not a problem. It's just that it requires me to do more. What problem for me is if that tasks are complicated, complex, requires a lot of other formulation, thinking, problem solving. Solving one issue is not going to solve everything. You have to relate to another factors. Okay, it's very complex, integrated. So that is a problem. Okay, because it's very difficult to solve it. Okay, requires complex and complicated solution. If the solution is simple, okay, requires a lot of things to be done, it's not a problem. It's just that you have many tasks, okay, many things to do. But that thing is simple. Okay, you complete one task, you are able to solve the whole problem. So for me, it's different. Okay, thank you, my supervisor. Okay, second strategy that we can employ, strategy to solve problem, is algorithm. Okay, algorithms. So what is algorithms? Algorithm can be considered as strategies, okay, such as formulas, instructions, testings that guarantee a solution to a problem. Okay, the simple examples to algorithm is mathematical formula. Okay, you have algebra to solve. So, but you have formula. Okay, and then if you use the formula step by steps, okay, by right, you'll be able to solve the problem. So there are procedures to that. You do not know how to cook, so you go and search for the recipe and you take an exact amount of the ingredient, process, and duration, so you'll be able to cook. So basically that recipe and the process of cooking is algorithm. This is algorithm. Same goes to SOP, standard operating procedures. If you want to perform a certain procedures and you have SOP, so if in order for you to solve that problems, you have to follow each procedure one by one. So that procedure can be considered as algorithm as well. Okay, so beside using sub-goals and algorithms, we can also employ heuristic, okay, to solve problems. It's not advisable, okay, why? Because heuristic do not require us to have a deep thinking on the problems. Most of the time, because of experience, usually it will also solve our problem. So what is heuristic? Heuristic is a shortcut strategies or guidelines that suggestion for a solution, but do not guarantee an answer. Okay, it's a mental shortcut. Why you opt to use a certain way of thinking? Because of your experience, because of other people experiments, or because of other people knowledge, because of other people uh, techniques. Okay, so you already have these mental shortcuts in your mind. So what happened is, so it's basically you just use it, okay, without having to think much of it. Okay, sometimes you can solve the problems, but sometimes you cannot solve the problem because we have not given a proper thought on it. Simple examples, okay? Simple example of heuristic. You want to have a dinner, okay? You want to have a dinner outside this time, okay? You want to have a dinner, but you want to have a good dinner that will give value for money and good for taste, okay? Sedap dimakan. So what is the mental shortcut? So you are driving through your car and looking for a good restaurants, okay, to eat. The mental shortcut is, if you see people lining up at a particular restaurant, then that restaurant must serve a good food. Okay, so seeing a place, a restaurant, a stall, for example, that have many people, so we have the mental shortcut that that must be a good restaurant. Okay, why? Because we think restaurants, a good restaurant will attract more client. Okay, more people eating that. So that's why we also have the same mental shortcut. So most of the time, people use heuristic or shortcuts strategies to solve their problem. So we use our thinking process a lot in solving problems. Okay, we try to do problem solving. However, most of the times, most people fail to solve their problem efficiently and effectively. One of the reason, because we have the obstacles. Okay, we face the obstacles to solve the problems. One obstacles to problem solving is becoming fixated. What is fixated? Fixated or fixation is basically we opt to use a prior strategy, an older strategy, a strategy that we used to do before, and we fail to look at a problem from a fresh, new perspective. So we opt to use the usual way that we have been using. So we fail to look at it from different angle, from different perspective, from different dimensions. Okay, this is the reason that psychologists discuss that we have committing or we are doing functional fixedness, okay, where we fail to solve a problem as a result of fixation on a thing's usual function. In other words, we have a very monotonous, fixated thinking of the same problem and same solution. So we fail to look at different alternative. We fail to look at from different perspective, from different angle, and from new approach. So this is one of the reason why most people fail to solve their problem or fail to solve their problem effectively and efficiently.